Welcome to episode 168 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Phil Etheridge and Jon Simmo Simcox to discuss their new project, This Rebel. In the previous episode, I spoke to James Walsh from Starsailor about their latest album, Where the Wild Things Grow. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. This Rebel are a chemically propelled loose-lip collective with Phil Etheridge from the Twang and Jon Simmo Simcox. The self-titled album will be released on 8th of March 2024 on Jump the Cut Records. In this interview, Phil and Jon discuss the genesis of the band, writing and recording the debut album, we look back at the Twang's back catalogue, and much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Phil and Jon from This Rebel. Hi Phil, hi Jon, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thanks for having us on, yeah. It's good.
It's great to have you. I'd like to go back to the start. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
Oh, God. I can remember pulling that Roxy Music vinyl out of my mum's and dad's collection with those two naked women on the front. I think that's what got me interested in music at the very start. It must have been about 8 or something.
I don't know. My dad loved Billy Joel, you know, and I've still got a big soft spot for Billy Joel. But I guess I had an older brother. I was lucky. I've talked about this a lot probably, but I had an older brother and he was really into like the early 90s, like grunge scene, you know, like all Ned's Atomic Dustbin and Wonder Stuff and all that. And
I think that's part of it. Like, you know, being from Stourbridge, that scene was quite important, I think. Yeah. Like growing up here, Ned's and the Wonder Stuff and Poppies and all that.
And Carter USM, Sheriff Fatman and all that.
Yeah.
Used to love that.
So much music in the town, like, you know, from when we was young.
But then all my mates went to, I went to a different school to my brothers and we was all like listening to rave and that kind of crossover. And then like bands like the Mondays, obviously, they really like, you know, they got everyone, didn't they? And I've said that a lot before, but like a band that can cross genres, you know, and get the students and get the normal folk, they're the important bands, aren't they? The Streets did it, you know, the Mondays did it, Oasis did it, and they're the bands that like really change culture, don't they? And change, like, you know, get everyone wearing wallabies and thinking they're Liam. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, yeah. You've been friends for years, and Jon, you produced some of the Twang's albums, but when did you both meet?
Well, we met first. I got pulled in to do the monitor job for the Twang. I don't know, what year was it? 2000?
It was in 7, yeah.
2007.
Yeah.
I can remember turning up to the rehearsal rooms wearing this Pink Floyd T-shirt, and Phil, as soon as I walked in, going, "What's your favourite band?" Just hoping that I didn't say Pink Floyd. I think I'd have been straight back out the door if I said that. But I was like, it's the Smiths. It was like, sound, sit down. No, but it was, yeah, that's how we first met.
Simmo worked with us for quite a while, to be honest. I think you kind of went straight to Japan with you, didn't we? I think
one of the first, yeah. And it was one of the first monitor gigs that I'd ever got. You know, I'd been engineering and touring a little bit around the UK, whatever, but not really worked for any proper signed bands or, you know, that were going abroad. I think that was the first.
It went, like, obviously we become mates straight away. So the rest of the crew like hated him. They were saying it's Superstar Crew was the thing, you know. Because he'd be out drinking with us after the shows and then coming back with us. And obviously we could do what we want, but the crew got the tour manager wants him under control. And so he was like Superstar Crew. So in the end, our tour manager sacked him. I mean, he did fuck up. We done this gig in Rockness, it was called, on the Loch, like, and it was quite a big show for us, like second headline or whatever. And TV cameras swooping and all that. And when I walked out, there was no sound. And I looked over at him and he was just shitting himself for fucking about 2 songs.
It's not how I remember it, to be fair, but I'm sure it wasn't ideal.
And then,
you know what? Phil is like probably the hardest man in rock and roll to please on stage. Harder than Liam, harder than any band I've ever worked with. So You got no chance, really.
But no, it was good. But that just gave our tour manager Mackham an excuse to get rid. But we stayed in touch, and we just stayed in touch, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right, and started drinking together. And I think the main thing for me and Sim was that before Mackham had got rid of him, he'd done a couple of years with us. We was writing for Jewelry Quarter, our second record, and we booked this cottage in Anglesey. And, for like a month, 5 weeks or whatever. And Simmo came up to like kind of record us, and just set everything up and just record us. And he was like sat making dinner and stuff. And just, every now and again he'd come in, he'd go, "Are you writing any fucking songs or what?" Sorry about my language, by the way. Are you cool?
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
Sorry. Yeah, he's appalling.
Good that was, like right by the sea in Anglesey, wasn't it? We used to go fish.
Yeah.
Fishing in the afternoon while he was writing some songs, then recording. It was nice. He
used to come in and say, "Have you wrote any songs? Have you wrote any?" And then we'd record it. But he didn't once pick up a guitar. And then I remember he was working with, do you remember Jolene and the Jing Jang Jon?
Yeah.
Do you remember that band? Well, he was working with them doing monitors or whatever. And they was at Glastonbury on this tour bus. And I went back to see him and say hello and stuff. And I'm sat in the bus and he suddenly like picks up a guitar, starts like, and I was like, "Why did you never tell me?" You know what I mean? Like, why did you never tell me that you could play guitar like you can? And pretty much from then on, I was kind of like, I'm going to write with Sim. Do you know what I mean? Because we got on.
I mean, that was a long time ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. And then he produced the kind of the last 3 Twang albums, really. And there was always a song or 2 on each album that me and Sim had wrote together.
Not so much produce it. Well, I sort of helped you guys produce it. We sort of produced it together in a way, didn't we?
But he kind of played on them as well. He was playing on them as well. And then there was always 1 or 2 songs that like me and Sim had kind of done together, whether it be like Woe Man or whether it be like Bigger Than You. There was always a couple of songs on each record. New Love. There was always like a few songs that we were like. So as soon as that was happening, I was like, well, I'm definitely going to make a record with him at some point, And then I moved over to Stourbridge, where we live now, some 5 minutes from him. And the rest is, we've made this record then. And that's it, really.
Yeah, you finally got around to it. You will release your self-titled debut album in March. This Rebel, it's absolutely fantastic. So when did it start?
Well, since I moved into the house where we are now about 4 years ago, and finally got space to have a little studio, started making putting some ideas down. But it might have been, I suppose it was the start of the pandemic, really, where I found myself with, because I was supposed to be going on, when the pandemic started, I was just about to leave to go on tour with Catfish and the Bottlemen for like 12 months. And then that stopped, everything got cancelled. And found myself in the studio loads, come up with a few songs. But it was them, wasn't it, really? We were just throwing ideas backwards and forwards because we couldn't get to
it. Well, yeah, it was that time when we was when you used to like drinking online, drinking on Zoom with your friends and stuff, weren't it? And like just sat, with nothing to do, really. And he started sending me tracks. I think the first one he sent me was like Duvet Helmet. And he'd give me like a track and a title as well. So it was like, that's what I'm going to write about. I'm just going to write whatever that title, gives me. And I sent that back to him. I messed about with it one day, sent it back. Next day, he sent it back to me, and it was like, there's something happening. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I was really like buzzing then because I thought this is definitely going to work. And from then on, he just kept sending me tracks, basically, And then once you could go in each other's houses again, I started going down his. And it just went from there, We before we knew it, we had a record, and there was always the thing: is it going to be a Twang record, or because it's not like he hadn't worked on the other Twang records, so there was always this question. But we felt like it was our own thing, especially
it had a bit of a different sound, didn't it? It's what we'd done before, I suppose.
And especially it was kind of Jon's record, it was Simmo's record, really, and so we decided to have a go and just put it out and just show people what we've been up to. I think it just marks a period of time, and I wanted to kind of get it finished and move on from that, on to the next. And I quite like that whole thing of like documenting time. I don't want to spend years and years and years making, I just want to.
And I wouldn't call it a pandemic record. Like, it ain't a lockdown record. It started off at that time. But I've always sat in my studio making songs and stuff, so it would have happened anyway. I think.
Yeah.
It just accelerated it a little bit because we could, just spend a little bit more time on it.
But it's definitely like a DIY. It's definitely like recorded at home. Produced by co-produced in a way, And during that time, we'd also done a record. I'd like done a little deal with this band called the FNR on the Twangs label, Jump the Cut. And I got Sim to produce that, and that kind of went really well, and that record sounded great. And so we was just keeping busy, And it was, mate, it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good. But like when you start playing it to people, I remember playing it to a few friends, the early stages of this Rebel, and all of them were saying, you got to put it out, man. You got to put that out. And I think it gave us the push to like.
It was easy, wasn't it? We just, like before we knew it, we had a finished record, really.
And I sent it to
it didn't seem like we had to try too hard to have it.
I sent it to a few people I trust that have that I trust, like kind of A&R, the Twang as such, like Dawkins and Robert Zoot and that. And they was all like, it's really good, man. You should put it out. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I've always been a fan of the Twang right from the start, and it's just great that this is about to drop. I've been playing it quite a lot. But what I want to ask is, what is a duvet helmet? What's that about?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? That is the question.
That's for you to decide.
That is for everyone to decide. I think lyrically, I've always kind of been like that as well. You know what it is about in your head, but I think when other people listen to it, they'll make up their own, they'll have their own cinematic view going on inside their head. And I like to keep it that way, So
for me, what it is, it's basically like, sometimes it's hard to get out of bed. You don't want to get out of bed. You just think, like, God, life's hard in it. And then you just wrap your head in a duvet, and it's like you've got a helmet on, like a crash helmet in bed to keep you safe. And you don't want to take it off and get out into the real world. But that's one idea of it. But then I suppose
I took it down a different route, but that's, I think you can, when people listen to it, they'll make up their own opinion of what it's about, But I am really, like, everything about that track, that was the start of it, where I thought, this is definitely happening. This is weird, this is sounding mad. So I was excited straight away.
First time you did the Eventide,
yes,
space machine, yeah.
What's it called? That because he bought this machine. This is like what Bowie used, and that. What's it called?
It's called an Eventide Clockworks H910, and it basically is one of the earliest digital processors, and it's a pitch shifter / delay. David Bowie used it a lot. Tony Visconti said it stretches the fabric of space time about what those David Bowie records and stuff. Loads of bands used it, but it's pretty weird. And I think it was a sound that Phil hadn't heard before, and it sort of inspired him.
Well, that taste is on everything, like the start of Cheap Thought, and it's all over Duvet. It was all over the record, really, and it was kind of like it became a real taste, a real flavour of the record. So it's good, man.
You mentioned Cheap Thought. It's a great track, great video. You say sometimes you're just better off not knowing. So what you're saying is sometimes honesty isn't the best policy. And I also get the 80s vibe in the production. It reminds me a bit of Boys of Summer by Don Henley. Was that intentional?
Nice. No, it wasn't. I've never thought about it like that. But that's interesting. I shall listen to that track now.
Well, I think all my songs start off just an acoustic demo, and I demoed that song, literally just acoustic guitar and vocal. That is the actual vocal. I never redid the vocal either. I demoed it with just an acoustic and sung it.
You sung it down your phone? It was what you recorded on your
phone? That was done. It was done. I recorded it properly, but I didn't I wasn't wearing cans, and I was doing it just through maybe even through a 58 or so. But I don't think I didn't go to much effort to do it properly. But I just demoed it, and he got hold of that and literally changed the whole track. But I never did the vocal again because it definitely had caught something, in that room.
It's a bit annoying though, because it had caught something, but it's like it's one of them bits of the record that, as a sound engineer, I wish it sounded a bit. I wish we could have redone it and got it cleaner, because it's like it's not the greatest sound.
No. See, this is where we did that. This is where we did that. That's it, isn't it?
But I can let it go, because what I've realised is it's more important to capture those things, and because it'll always be, it'll always have magic, no matter how bad it sounds. But if it's better that than it sounding brilliant but being a bit void of any.
Well, I think when I did that vocal, there was a couple of people in the room, and they were kind of ignoring what I was doing. So I was probably a little bit like, you should listen to this, man. This is going to be a tune, like, and that vocal's got that in my head. It's got that kind of sadness of that, and that wanting to be, heard or something. It's got something anyway. I'm really proud of that song. But the not knowing thing, I guess it's just, there is, everyone's got a past, haven't they? And, you need to be present, don't you? And not worry about what's gone and what will be, and just be happy that you're happy now, innit? Without sounding too zen. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of, how the song makes me feel. Yeah.
Most songs are up for interpretation, aren't they? I think on most songs you listen to, you can decide what they mean for yourself.
I don't think it's about not being honest. I think it's about not asking certain questions that are going to change things, because there is no going back when some things are said. Do you know what I mean? And some things sometimes you're better off not saying. Do you know what I mean? Not saying those things, and especially if they're going to hurt someone. Yeah, that's it.
I love the video as well. So, Phil, how many pints of Guinness did you have to get through in the video?
It was a good night. It was a good night. So we've got a friend, Greg, who's in a band called Cut Glass Kings, who are brilliant. They're on the Corals label. James from the Coral produces them and looks after them and that. And he's someone I've drunk with, once a week for the last, I don't know, however many years, 8 or 9 years or whatever, and just talking tunes and stuff. But he comes and shoots the Twang when we're out, and he does quite a bit of photography and stuff. And I said to him, will you do a video for this? And it was just like, it was so easy. It was the easiest video I've ever made. We literally, as I put in a tweet the other day or whatever, the brief was just to look a bit sad, walk around town, stopping off and having a Guinness everywhere, and we had ideas of how each frame should look and stuff, but it was a really easy video, Greg was saying, because Greg's in a band himself and obviously does videos and stuff, and he was saying he couldn't believe how easy it happened. But I think it's captured. I think it's
so how many pints of Guinness though? That's the question.
Oh God, I did lose count. I'm not a big drinker. I'm a small man, but I had quite a few. I had enough to be by the last few takes. I'm a bit worse for wear, put it that way. I'd switched to the rum and cokes at some point as well. I was getting a bit full of. Yeah, man, it was good, and then the edit was easy. It was. I think the whole record's got that thing where it was like it wasn't hard. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like when I've made records in the past, there's been like not pressure from the outside, but pressure from the internally to be like this. We've got to. This has got to be unbelievable, and it has got to be great. You can't put out shit, but. I think working with Sim, I just found it so easy because I was like sending vocals and he was sending them me back and it was sounding like finished, and I was like, wow, this is like, and it weren't that we were being lazy, it was just that we were capturing something and a time,
Definitely allowed ourselves to leave the album a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah. Especially with the mixes, I was very keen on going back to like early mixes a lot because I felt that they had this like this feeling, of like they were just exciting. And my vocal takes, I'd only done, I was only doing like 2 or 3 takes, and he was going like "fuck off out the room now," and like I'd go outside. And
I think I did fall into the trap a little bit of like trying to maybe overdoing it, the mixes a little bit, or maybe. What do they call it? Like ant fucking. Yeah. Concentrating on the little things a bit too much. But I think in the end, it's fine. But there's a couple of mixes on a couple of the songs that I think I wish I'd have stopped a little bit earlier.
Yeah, but you're never going
to. But I think that's just part of.
You're never not going to have that.
That's part of just making a record.
And you have to go there to come back, don't you? A lot of the time. But like, I'm quite happy to like go with the initial feeling. Like, if that moves me, I'm happy to like say that's done. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's important because a good song with that's performed with like conviction will always be a good song, won't it? Even if it sounds shit, even if it's recorded on your phone or in a fucking Abbey Road, you know, it'll still be a good song. So I think we sort of tried to concentrate on getting the songs right first. So it didn't really matter too much how they ended up sounding, I suppose.
And, you know, we've worked with people where it's all pulled on the grid and it's all like so perfect, and it kind of does lose something, you know, it does lose, you know, it loses something. I can't, you know, put it into words what it is, but it definitely, I'm definitely happier when we're fluid and we're just like going, and, you know, and it's not about stroking each other's back even. It's like, but, you know, when there's a feeling of that's great, man, that's great, you know, and you're both saying that's great and you're both feeling it, it's so much easier to go on to the next phase, isn't it? Yeah. You know, rather than picking at it and saying, because you're going to like over the weeks, you're going to go, oh, I could do that verse better. Do you know what I mean? Or I could change that line. I'm not happy with that line. You're going to get there. But I think when you're originally like putting them down, it's best just to be fluid and just, you know, just keep throwing the ideas down. And that's what he was doing. Like, you know, I'm not taking credit for the record, because all my lyrics, like, he was, you know, when I'd show him Simmo, he'd be like, you know, you could say that there instead, or you could lose that line, or, you know what I mean? And like, it was very much a co-written record, you know, lyrically.
The first single you released was Heartstopper, another brilliant track. Why did you decide to put it out first? Did you think it represented the album more than the other tracks?
To me, it seemed exactly like a sort of prologue. Is it? What's the word? You know, at the start of a book, like an introduction to something. It's just it. For me, it's exactly what it seemed like. Not almost not part of the record itself. Almost like a little, like, welcome to the world of this rebel. A short, you know, just a little introduction almost.
I think when we recorded it as well, because it was one of the last songs we did, if not the last.
And it sounded, and it's great. It sounds really like.
I think it was the last song we recorded, or was the same every time. I don't know. I think it was one.
Heartstopper, I think was.
It was one of the last ones, and I remember being in the studio, and Sim was just stood at the back of the room with this massive grin on his face, and I thought it was just a beautiful night. Do you know what I mean? Because like I'd kind of gone in with these lyrics. He'd sent me this track, and I'd actually been on holiday with it, just like sat on a balcony writing to it every night. And the
track had guitars and bass and drums and everything on it.
Did the original
at one point?
The original one?
I can't remember, but
I think it was the B-line that I was writing to.
Was it?
Away. I think so.
Right.
But it just happened really quick. And as I say, I just remember him stood at the back of the room with this big grin, and then we was, you know, you're getting excited and we're going, this is fucking great, you know. And
you just had a good vibe to it again. It wasn't so much like anything other than it kind of has that feeling. It gives you some sort of like energy from it.
And when we sent the record to people as well, I think that most people came back mentioning Heartstopper as well. So it was like, it was, you know, Heartstopper, you know, and obviously Cheap Thought and that. But we, and it's got the name of the band in the song. Do you know what I mean? So it was like a good introduction to us. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it?
It made sense in our heads.
My favourite song on the album is King Without a Throne. You know, I love the way it soars. You say, don't end up on your own in a cheap hotel. It's an absolutely amazing track. What can you tell me about that?
Thanks very much.
It should be a single.
Yeah, I always thought that. I don't know. Yeah. Do you know what? I think that's my favourite track on the album as well, actually. I really like that. Those lyrics are quite poignant, actually. I won't say it's about me, you know, but it's definitely, I don't know, it's quite a personal song. And obviously when Johnny Scott from Churches, that band, put the drums down on it, it just like came alive, really. It was, Yeah, I don't really know what. There's not much to say about it really, other than I think it's my favourite.
It was crafted. It was definitely one of them songs that was crafted over, a number of weeks.
Yeah.
It was adding middle-eight, the middle-eight, come late and stuff. And
I think the chorus, the lyrics are what I think are the best lyrics that I've written on that record, probably.
Yeah.
In that chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic track. Love it.
Thanks, mate.
So who's the female vocalist on the tracks? If I Wrote You a Letter, Kisses and Wallflowers, they're brilliant tracks.
That's Kat, who sings with the Twang a bit. I don't know if you've heard "Every Time" by the Twang.
Yeah. Is that on the last album?
Yeah, it's on the last record. Yeah, the first single. That's Kat Mateague. Yeah, her voice is it's incredible, man. It's effortless.
It's great. It sounds like it really reminds me of that sort of 90s rave, like. Those rave vocals, or like Primal Scream a little bit, or she's amazing. She was a big influence on the record, actually, because during that time when we was first bouncing stuff around, I got Kat involved and said, try a verse on this, or try, and she was definitely really helpful with the record and really relaxed as well. She was just like for instance, when she sent us Milktooth, her verse, we was just just like, wow, man. She's got such a good voice, actually, and she doesn't sound like weird, like a weirdo.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. She doesn't sound like a, like a diva. Like I don't know, like she's trying to be a diva.
She was doing it at home as well, so she's got a little setup in her house, and it just worked. She was brilliant, man. She's lovely, so. It's all good.
Yeah, I love the track she's on. Well, I love the whole album. It's great. Will you be playing any live shows?
We're jamming tomorrow night. We're getting in the studio. To be honest, we haven't got much. We've been rehearsing and trying to get a little set together, but it's difficult because I'm away working because I'm still touring, mixing monitors for various bands. I'm just away so much. It's just going to be really hard to squeeze any in. But we're trying. We're rehearsing. We've got Baz from the Fratellis playing bass.
Yeah.
And
good lad.
Obviously Greg, Cut Glass Kings, he's going to play drums. So we've got everything together, and a good friend of mine, Twig, is going to come in on guitar as well. So we're all getting together and we're jamming, and we're getting a set together. It's just when we can actually physically get on a stage and play a gig might prove difficult until at least the end of the year, the autumn at least.
I think it's definitely something we want to do. I think we're quite relaxed with the whole thing. We made a record. We wanted to get it out there. Obviously, we want to play some live shows, but
the album was made before we even thought we was in a band. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We had the record. We made a record, and we were like, "Well, what's this? Then are we in a band now, or what?" And now we've realised, and now we're like, "Well, if we are in a band, we better hurry up and learn how to play the songs."
So, but I went round Sims the other day, and Baz was there, and they were playing along, and it sounded great. It's going to be, it's going to sound great, And I definitely want to get out there and do some shows.
We will definitely play shows. To answer your question, just it ain't going to be anytime soon.
But I think it's different as well. I think the start of this whole, when the record's out, then we'll see. We'll see how people, have reacted to it. The label was saying to us the other day that, it starts when the record's out. And I was like, that's a really beautiful way of looking at it, and so we'll see what happens. And, hearing you say about King Without a Throne and that, it's it'll be really nice to hear what people think's, their favourite track and that. And it's going to be good. We're definitely going to play some shows, basically, to answer your question.
Good. Let's talk a wee bit about the Twang. The Twang have released 5 studio albums, and Jon, you've produced 3 of them from 1020 up to the last album, If Confronted, Just Go Mad. So I'm going to mention a few, and when I mention them, can you tell me briefly what first comes into your head when I mention each one?
Go on.
So we'll start off with a debut.
Young and free and not caring. It was brilliant. There was no everyone just throw them up in the air. It will land how it lands. I don't think we sounded like anyone. And I think it was a beautiful time. And you'll never get that. You'll never get that back. You can never have that when you're writing. Once you've made that debut record, it's gone. Because if I ever do listen to it if I need to remember some lyrics or whatever for live, it just sounds youthful and alive. And I remember there was never any like, oh, sing it like this or play it like this or do that. You know, it was just like, let's just do what comes. You know, and yeah. So that's it.
I can tell you what I think about it, and that's the first time I went in when I first got offered the job with the Twang, and I went in the studio to watch them rehearse, and I didn't know anything about them. I'd never heard of them really, and they started and I sat there on the floor, and they started playing Two Lovers, and I remember thinking to myself, "Holy shit! Like my life's going to change massively. Like this is fucking incredible. Like how amazing that's like the songs were, and you know, just telling straight away that the band were like a different kettle of fish. And yeah, I can literally remember how excited I was right then. I can still remember being, you know, that feeling.
You know, you can always have regrets, especially with the debut, because we could have recorded with anyone. You know, we had offers to do it with literally, like, we could have gone in with any producer, but we chose to stay with the lad that had demoed them. You know, Gav Monaghan, and whether that was the right thing to do or not, I don't know. But like,
you'll never know.
You'll never know. You just have to, like, we just did what we did on it, and it's become in its own right. You know, for the people that like the Twang, that record's an important record. Do you know what I mean? So, and
there were some great B-sides from that era as well.
Yeah, well, we were really. You know, that's growing up listening to Oasis and everything, isn't it? And every time they released a single, there was like, you know, 3 tracks that were better than the A-side on it, you know, and their little EP, each single was a little EP, weren't it? And we wanted to kind of do that and have B-sides as strong as A-sides, you know, and I feel that we did. But then, like Noel would say, you know, you could have made another album out of those B-sides, you know what I mean? But yeah, who knows? We did do a B-side album actually in 2017, which is one of my favourite records of ours. So, yeah, it's good.
Do you have a recorder?
Anglesey.
It makes me think of Anglesey with Sim, and that time was beautiful. It makes me think of going with Youth, who did urban hymns, and it not working, which was a shame.
Why did it not work?
Guitar, that's what happened there.
Yeah, and I sat on this acoustic guitar. I mean, it just wasn't working. I don't think he was trying to turn this into a big stadium band, which is, you know, I guess the right thing, but it was just layered in guitars. And we was there for a month in Granada. You came out to that, didn't you, as well? And that was hard. But then we met Neil Claxton from Mint Royale, and we went to Manchester to Elbow Studio, that Blueprint, and spent a month there and finished it. And it was worth. It turned out well because I hadn't wrote Barney already in Granada, and I hadn't wrote like Twit to Woo. So coming back and then getting those songs and then redoing it, I love that record. I do. That's probably my favourite Twang record.
1020. That's the first one you come on board, John, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that was a fun time in the lockup down the Jewellery Quarter.
Yeah, from my point of view, I remember we'd been dropped, and there was a feeling of, are we going to carry on? And, you know, we'd spent so much time together, and 90% of the time together we were drunk. So you obviously begin to dislike each other. Do you know what I mean? Because you when you spend that much time with someone and all of that, most of the time you're drunk and arguing, and, you know. So I remember with that record, I said to Sim, will you just record Jon's songs and I'll kind of sit and shut up? My memory of doing that record is kind of like lying on a sofa, just piping up and going, oh, I like that. Like, you know, like, and then doing the vocals. But I really like kind of let Jon and Sim just
we were in that we spent a lot of time in the studio, in that room. We had a big room in this warehouse in the Jewellery Quarter, and we were there almost every day, weren't we? Not even writing the record, just like recording and making music and stuff. I think that was when I realised I was going to be like a mediator between Phil and Jon then, as well as a producer. That was kind of my producer's role, was getting the best out of these guys whilst helping them navigate their differences, I suppose, in a way as well. Well, it was I've really fond memories about that. We were there almost every day for weeks.
I was proud of how I kind of my role in that record, because I did kind of try and step back a bit and give Jon some space to write, and then I eventually added my own songs in, and like it's a co-written record.
That was the first time me and you wrote a song.
Woman, wasn't
it? Yeah,
we wrote Woman, and
which was exciting because I think we knew, didn't we, when we were right in the middle of writing that, we knew that we were.
And Take This On and stuff. I think when you listen to Twang records, you can kind of hear the ones that are Jon's and you can hear the ones that are mine. If you kind of know us, and we're a crowd and stuff. And it was good, man. It's a great record. In my opinion.
Neon Twang.
Well,
that's Rory. Yeah, we recorded it on a
fucking little boat on the Thames.
Yeah,
miles from anywhere.
Down by Container City in London. And what's it called? Lightship 65 or Lightship 95?
Yeah, well, we had the songs, didn't we? Didn't we have them demoed? Or?
We had demoed them all, yeah.
We demoed them all, and I don't know, like we went to see Rory Atwell, and we didn't really record. We tried to finish the record with the demos, didn't we?
Yeah, but what happened was the manager that we had at the time was like, try working with someone different. So we met with Rory, Test High Schools and that, who'd worked with the Vaccines and Yuck, who we both, both of those bands we liked, especially Yuck.
He's a nice chap, Rory, as well.
And we went and done the Wobble with him. We went and done one track. And I remember driving home and I just on repeat in the car, and I was thinking, wow, man, we've never done anything like this, you know what I mean? And that was really like, Saunders had wrote the verse, I'd wrote the chorus, Jon had wrote the post-chorus. It was a real, like, and each individual song are individual bits. It just sounded so different. I was so buzzy with that track. So then we did go and do the album with him. But I think when it come to the mixing, we'd kind of run out of money. So Rory mixed it as well. Not a slight on him, but he's so fucking indie. I think he likes to fuck things up, which I was quite into as well. I kind of got what he was about.
Yeah.
But he's the most in, he's a fucking hipster, isn't he?
It's a bit too lo-fi for your liking at the end, wasn't it? The mixes, some of the mixes.
It was for Jon. I still like that record, and I think like again, me and Simmo had wrote New Love together on that record, because that was the first time that he'd ever sent me fully finished music, just the music, like songs with no lyrics. And I wrote New Love to that. And then one day when everyone else had gone home, he was like, show me that idea for Bigger Than You. And we just done that in a day there. And I really felt that was one of the best songs I'd written over the whole time, really. So that album was the start of me and Sim really writing together as well. It was like, and again, because what he said about me and Jon, although like, we've been friends for so long, there's definitely always been a like, because Jon writes a lot, and he's a good singer, Jon is, and it was sometimes hard to sing other people's lyrics, and just obvious. It was just obvious. We kind of, that record, I think it's great. I think it's mad. I think it sounds fucking well weird, Sometimes I listen to it and think it's our best work, And then other times I listen to it and think, that mix is fucked, because he was deliberately like... I remember the one song, Medicine, it's got this like really screamy, shouty chorus, and he like turned it right down. And I was like, why you like to have that fucking like mad loud and aggressive? And he was like, no, I want it there. And even when we was mastering it, do you remember we was down at Jeremy's and... Jeremy was going, you got to turn that up. Rory was going, nope. Just like, he just like he was setting, he was like, that's how it is. So, yeah, it is. I think of Rory Atwell, yeah. Who's a lovely lad, great lad, really funny.
Follows this rebel now on Instagram.
Does he? Yeah, he's a lovely lad. Turned up in the morning on this little fucking old granny bike, proper hipster.
He's one of them, isn't he?
He's proper London, like, And, yeah, man. He's a nice kid.
And finally, If Confronted, Just Go Mad, which was a completely different sound, I thought, for the band.
Well, that was that just makes me think of me and Jon finally getting into a room together and deciding to, make a record together. Like, because that's the first record since probably the first one where it was me and Jon just sat with guitars and writing, and we'd got about, and every time we went in, we finished, we'd come away with another track at least or two, and it was a beautiful time. And I'd be on the train on the way home, texting Jon. We felt like I really felt alive again. And then obviously we got Simmo involved to come down and record them, but it was really written. We had this thing called like Wednesday Club, where we'd meet 10 in the morning, because we'd gone a bit part-time then, because as Simmo was saying, when we was doing 10-20, it was still like, it was like every day, like, 9 to 6 every day in the studio. I'd drop the kids off at nursery and straight to the studio, but we'd kind of gone a bit more part-time. Kids were getting older, you got school runs and all that. Was going in like once or twice a week, but we had this thing, Wednesday Club, where we'd crack a bottle of wine, early doors.
At 9:30.
It was like early doors. It was just a beautiful time. And it makes me shudder how fucked we were making that record. But then it was so unhealthy, but like a really, I'm really proud of that record, and so is Jon. And it did kind of cement our friendship, in the way of like, it was great to just be back, just sat with him. Weird, because he's a weird man, but it was great to be sat in a room with him again, just fucking writing. And I think a lot of Twang fans talk about that as their favourite record, since the first. So it's good.
Just a few more questions, guys. I like to ask my guests the following questions. For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. So what song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
Hatful of Hollow by the Smiths. Because I went, when I was young, when I was like 20, I just got a bag and went off to South America for like 8 months and just travelled all around South America, like with a bag and a Walkman and a load of tapes. I had like a rucksack with clothes and everything in, and then a rucksack with just a bag of tapes. And that was just the one song, the one album that I just had on for my whole trip. And the batteries used to run out on the tape machine, and the whole album used to get slower and slower. And it took on a whole new vibe. The Smiths at like quarter speed. It's just reminds me. I just love that band, and it really reminds me of that time. Definitely for me, yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably go the Smiths myself. Just on a tour bus, dancing to the Smiths, travelling around. Happy as fuck. Like we won the lottery, on a rolling pub, travelling around playing shows with the Smiths being blared out. I mean, the National as well were always played on the bus.
There was,
weren't they?
Full blast, like
all the wine being blasted out, like, and I think the National, them, Alligator, the Boxer, they take me back to a great time. I don't know. There's loads. I think James the band James, we toured with James and Early Doors. I think we'd only just been signed, and they're so good, and they were so lovely to us, and they were so like complimentary, and it really changed everything from that tour onwards. We was like, because we'd got to play in these massive rooms, and songs like Sometimes, I still think. Sometimes I think about all the time, because like, it's such a great song. Do you know what I mean? And like, it's so simple. It's like 2 chords, and, you're always searching for that kind of song. Or I'm always searching for that, I want to write something as good as that, and Him from a Village is just, amazing. They played it when we toured with them. They didn't ever play it live. And then the one night was in Birmingham at Dale End at the old academy, the Hummingbird, and we heard them sound checking it, because we'd been going on to them about how much we love that track. And then on the night they dedicated it to us, and my brother was crying after, like, he couldn't believe it. And yeah, it's amazing times, man. So I'm going to go James.
Yeah, great band. They have a new album coming out soon called Yummy.
Yeah, they've made about 50. They've made about 50 records, they don't stop. They do that thing when they pass the stick, you know. Like Metallica.
What, it's your turn to make one?
No, it's your turn to talk.
Oh, right.
When they have band meetings, they pass the
Oh, did they?
They pass the
I think
stick.
you meant writing a new record.
That's what we need.
Your turn to write the next one.
That's what we need to do, man. Pass the stick.
What song or album is your guilty pleasure?
Oh, I love Mariah Carey.
Fucking hell.
Sometimes,
Put that out there.
sometimes I stick it on in the car and I'm just like, listen to her. I'm like, listen to her voice, kids. No, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't love Mariah Carey, but I do sometimes put it on it. I find it quite feel good.
When you're in the car and you have Mariah Carey on, do you have the windows up or down?
Oh, up, definitely.
Takes the roof off.
And not too loud. I can't have anyone hearing that outside the car.
Oh God, I can't beat that. I like a little bit of pop punk. I do. Do you know what I mean? A bit of emo. What's a guilty pleasure? I don't tell people I like. I really like Miss You by Blink-182, but everyone likes that, so that's not a real guilty pleasure. I tell you a song I like that I probably wouldn't tell that many people. I like that Movies by Alien Ant Farm. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
I love that track. I think it's brilliant. Are they called? Is that too cool? No, that's not being too cool. I think that's but I'm into. I do like a bit of. The other day I was listening to a band called Charmer, and they're real like emo, and I am fond of.
You like a bit of emo, don't you?
I do like a bit of screamy, heartfelt vocal, you know. But that I suppose in a way that is a guilty pleasure, but it's kind of not as well because it's just what I'm into, you know.
Yeah. Last one. If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Oh, it's an odd question, that is.
I'd probably go back to Glastonbury headline, you know, because we headlined the John Peel on a Friday night and maybe took it for granted a little bit. Like we did the whole of that first year, you know. Got to the point where everyone was just telling us we were going to kill it. You know, you're going to kill it, yeah. And like you kind of take your eye off the ball a little bit because you just think it's never going to end, you know. And I think, and I didn't want to upset people, but if I went back to that time, I'd be a little bit more like, you know, I'd be a little bit more on it. Like I was before we got signed, you know, I was really like, you know, I had a plan. And when we did eventually get signed, you know, you just, as I said earlier, you know, you're on this rolling pub and you just think it's never going to end, you know, and you make some choices that to keep everyone happy, whether it just be a track that you put on a record that you wish you hadn't now or whatever, but you do some things to keep the peace, which you know, I wouldn't do now going back. I would have said my, you know, I'd have stopped it.
I think I would like to leave that last word with Phil because I've got so many, and I don't think I couldn't put my finger on one. And I think none of them would mean as much as what Phil just said, really, because I don't know, just working in the industry for so many years, like just being on so many stages, watching so many gigs. Yeah, I just couldn't pick. I couldn't pick one.
I've got to be honest. When we wrote Heartstopper, and Simmo was smiling at the back of the room with a massive grin, with his little wine in his hand. That's a moment that I'll treasure as well. You know, like definitely.
Oh, thanks.
Like we've done.
Wonderful.
Like it was kind of like the last song of the like we'd done something, and like you know, it was like it was easy and it was joyful and happy, and like you know, and there was a belief in each other. You know what I mean? That like is so important to have that feeling of like someone believing in what you're doing. You know, when you're trying to make art or whatever you want to call it. You know. To have someone saying that's great, man, is like a wonderful feeling. Do you know what I mean? And I'd go back to that room at that time always because it felt so it felt so great to have made something, you know. But like it does whenever you finish a tune that you're happy with, and as I said earlier, you're on the train and you're texting each other going, it's fucking amazing, and you feel that anything's possible, and, you know, the world's opened up to you, and, you know, and then another day you're back in, you're like, oh shit, I'm not good, you know what I mean? I'm not good enough or whatever, and, you know, and all them feelings that are normal, and you should feel like that, you know, because you can't be high all the time. So yeah, I'm going to say this Rebel when we made Heartstopper. Take me back to that room any time. I'd be happy. It was good.
So guys, that's me done. Is there anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up? Anything else coming up in the immediate future, or do you want to tell people
the
where they can get the album?
The record's out March the 8th. We're signing some vinyls. We've got some vinyls being delivered here.
Hopefully today we should be doing that.
Hopefully today. We haven't seen the vinyl yet, so we're excited about that. But yeah, people can pre-order that. And yeah, man, we just want people to have a listen to the record and play it to their mates and see what they think, you know.
Yeah, well, as I said, it's a great album. I've been certainly enjoying it. Being a fan of the Twang, you know, it's just a continuation. It's a great album, and I wish you all the best with it.
Thanks ever so much, man. Thanks for speaking to us.
Nice one.